a really good way to welcome you all to the Sportscar Safari podcast. We're here on a Thursday, dialing in. Myself, Andrew Coles. We've got co-editor Luke Jackson and guest Tim Possingham here with us in person tonight. So, yeah. Luke,
which is nice one. We shouldn't have any internet dropouts tonight. Woohoo! Unless you drop out again.
Yeah, I know, maybe, but yeah. So no, it's going to be brilliant to chat with Tim. I'm sure many people in Adelaide and the Australian motorsport and rally scene will be familiar with Tim. He's been involved in cars, like as long as I can remember. Racing rotaries in the early days. Running businesses, RPM Performance. More recently, Adelaide Motorsport Festival. He was the man behind the rebirth of the Classic Adelaide Rally, now the Adelaide Rally. He's involved in electric car and hydrogen projects, and a bit of everything really. So Tim, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
No worries. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So so it's good to be here. So I guess we'll we're going to get into a lot of you tuning in are probably keen to hear about Adelaide Rally, and obviously it's pretty exciting. It's going to be one of the first events back in the new normal of motorsport. But I think we'll start back in the early days with some rotaries and premix fuel and generally hooning around and annoying the neighborhood.
Yeah,
I think it'd be a cool thing to go back and find out about where Tim started and how he got his passion in cars, because there's nobody who runs a rally for getting rich or anything like that. Like, you run a rally because you love motorsport and you want to do it. So, take us back.
Well, it depends how far back you want to go. I mean, we can go way back, and I probably like to go way back so people understand how it all happened.
Yeah.
But what
was your first Hot Wheels?
Well, I can't remember.
Not that far back.
No, but look, I do remember this, that my parents both raced cars. So my mother raced cars and my father. And they were members of the Sporting Car Club of South Australia. So back in the 60s and the 70s, they would they're doing a lot of hill climbs, and there was a women's Winter Cup hill climb and stuff like that. My mother, I've got trophies at home from my mother, and my father was right into it as well, and he used to race an MGTC. My mum raced an Alpha at MGBs. I remember my father had an E-Type Jag, which he sold later to buy a Charger. I thought it was terrible for a while, and now I even look at the price of Chargers and you think, actually, maybe it wasn't so bad. But, so they were into cars, and I remember as a kid, I'd get picked up. I'd go to Colin Grove Hill Climb or go to Mallala or wherever, and I remember being picked up and put in open wheeler cars, and I hated cars. I got to say, it was because for anyone who's into motorsport, motorsports, it's maybe about 10% of racing, and then there's about 90% of hanging around doing nothing and waiting. So when you're like a kid like I was, obviously we I spent a lot of time hanging around and waiting and getting bored, and parents would pick me up and put me in cars and stuff like that, and I just sort of didn't get it. I didn't get it at all till I was 15, and my parents gave me this beaten up Leyland Mini. Was the first thing that I got given. First car that I had, and we
was
didn't
that
have,
a yellow one?
No, it was brown. It was brown, and we didn't have a lot of money. And I got given this car, and I learned to drive in it. And then this is what my father used to muck around with cars at the same time. So he'd be rebooting a diff for a car on the kitchen table sort of thing at night and all that kind of stuff. And I'd see him doing all of that, but I didn't particularly get along with him. So when I got this car, if something went wrong with it, I had to do it myself. And I sort of started to get into messing around with a car, and I bought a book called How to Tune the A Series Engine, and it had all the stuff in there about porting cylinder heads and camshafts and rebooting engines and all that kind of stuff. And I also had this Gregory's manual.
Increase the exhaust diameter from 5 mil to 6 mil.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. And I remember there's one phrase in the Gregory's manual that is still sticks with me today, and that is refit is a reversal of the removal procedure.
I love that.
You got it?
No, that well.
Refit is the reversal of the removal procedure. So what that essentially means is you take something apart, you put it back together again. That's the way you took it apart. And,
does that happen with X19s, Andrew?
It's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's really good, but they don't. But the little hints they don't tell you about, the big
well, correct. Well, so that's how I learned to muck around with cars, and I did my first circuit sprint, I think, when I was 16, and I went off and I studied other things like architectural drafting and building design and graphic design. But and my mother was always telling me, I should, work as a mechanic, and I couldn't think of anything worse than working on someone else's car. I just want to work on my own car. And I wanted to learn more about cars. So I went and got a job. I quit my job got a job at an advertising agency, and I worked there for 6 months. And I then left to go and work at a place called Trump Engineering, which is on Nord Parade back in the day. It's run by a guy called Simon Aram, who I've actually had working for me recently doing some stuff. It's funny how that works. But anyway, so they built race cars, they built sports sedans and Commodore Cup cars and stuff like that. So I went to work there, and I just want to learn as much as I possibly could about cars, and I learned a whole heap about fabrication and engineering and
especially if they're sports cars, like sports sedans are
correct,
tubular chassis race cars. If anyone overseas is listening, they're basically like tube chassis cars with almost anything kind of body. Some people convert like steel shell bodies into it. Someone did like an Audi A4 sedan or something, didn't they?
They often had mid-mounted engines in them, often like V8 and mid-mounts and stuff like that. So I worked there for a while, and then I went to, and during this time, I'm doing stuff like I'm building up Mazda rotaries. I got right into Mazda rotaries and Datsun 1600s, Mark 1 Cortinas, stuff like that. And I was living, the other interesting is I was living in a property right near Burnside Village. So in South Australia here, there's this really upmarket shopping centre in quite an affluent area. And we had a house that had like a HIA order on it. So that's like, it was like almost condemned. And I was sitting there with a friend, and it had, huge cracks in the wall that you could quite literally see through the cracks in the wall. And at night, you'd hear the plaster. On a hot night, the plaster would fall off the walls and stuff like that where the cracks were. So anyway, we're living there, and we filled the entire backyard with Datsun 1600s and Mazdas and stuff like that. And we basically had a wrecking yard right in the middle of this affluent suburb. There's probably about 30 cars in the backyard. And that's how we funded a business called Adelaide Fords and Rotary. So I started that in partnership at Edwardstown here with a friend of mine who I lived with. And we essentially bought, and this will make people cringe now, but we bought like Mazda RX-3s, RX-4s, things like that. We'd pay $150 for a complete Mazda RX-4, and we'd get it back. And of course, then we'd throw out all of the stuff that was like the super original stuff. Now, like like an original steering wheel would go. You'd throw the factory, what they call the Reaps exhaust system, would go in the bin and all that kind of stuff, and we'd sell all of the back then the good parts off the car.
Was that for people to convert them and stuff like that, or
no? Back then, they were around, and people were just hotting them up, so they were modifying them, and we.
What year is this?
So we're talking circa sort of 1992. Type thing. So just when that whole foreign rotary scene was just about to really get cranking. And I had that business, I suppose, and ended up wanting to take it further. And my business partner was quite happy with the way it was, so I sold out to him, and we still remain friends. And then he had that business for quite some time later, and I went off and started RPM Performance Centre, which was really focused on building high performance or highly modified street cars. So we built things like bizarre stuff like we even got a genuine Walkinshaw Commodore, and we put a 2JZ motor in it, and we would do conversions on Celigas with 2Js and 1Js and diff conversions and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of them were engineered race cars. I mean, we did a lot of drag racing, and they were really, really good times. We built a really good business back then. We at our peak, I think we had 8 full-time employees, and we had a fab area, and we had a dyno, and and we made quite a name for ourselves with the magazines, like your old Fast Fours and Rotaries magazines and things like that. And
did you have a dedicated sticker guy?
Yeah. And we sort of famous for these color-coded stickers we had on the car.
You remember them as well, Andrew?
Yeah. Every RX2 and RX3 had a big chrome link at the bottom of the door RPM sticker down on the sill panel.
Or the back windows, and they were multicolored, and they were done in the same colors as the car. So if someone had a purple car, it would be shades of purple on the sticker and whatever. So we built a really good profile and did a lot of had good times, with a lot of illegal street racing and stuff like that, and built stuff like the wheel standing Mazda R100 turbo, R100 nitrous turbo thing, and back in those days, you'd tune that on the road even, and so I suppose then that's where I suppose my love of cars took me to that point, and then and then it evolved into other things, like because we were making all these custom parts for cars, we started to jig for them so that we could make them repeatedly. So like we make a special cross member to put FJ20 a turbo like Nissan motor into a Datsun 1600. Then we would make a jig and make for the cross member and stuff, and then we'd start to sell them. And we started to build a dealer network overseas, because the magazines that were all of the cars that we were doing were featured in, they were starting to make their way into Singapore and Brunei and Malaysia and even in the UK and whatnot. So with that happening, these people were coming to us for kits and components, and then this thing called the internet came about. And when that came about, we started selling a lot of product into the US, and the exchange rate was favorable. So we in effect created a bit of a distribution company, and because we created channels overseas for these products, we then took on board other Australian products like Microtech, engine management systems. And I had a business that had the rights to distribute those globally with another guy, Microtech EFI.
So the Microtechs were quite popular in the US back in the day.
Very, very. But we're selling a lot to Puerto Rico and into the southern part of America. Yeah. And because when you're selling those products overseas, and maybe some of them didn't have the promotional material or the market and training material that goes with them, we developed the training manuals, and we developed like some of the promotional material, and then we ran training seminars. So we did incoming missions with people from all around the world would come over to Australia to do the training on the Microtech engine management system, and we'd do a special event where we would get to show them the product in action. So we'd often combine it with the Jamboree in Queensland, which is, for those of you who don't know, is a big drag racing event, sport compact drag racing event. And in effect, I suppose, created this sort of distribution company and an online shopping business, which was called Horsepower in a Box, which I later sold. And and to cut a long story short, I ended up selling the workshop and a few other bits and pieces, and then I suppose changed my tact in terms of my job or what I'm doing as a career towards more towards business development and marketing and whatnot, and consult to other businesses and help them do what I was doing. But of course, because I'm, have got this, whatever it is, this connection with automotive, I mainly worked with automotive companies, and, we took it from there. And as a byproduct of marketing, you often are involved in events. So, I was competing in events, taking part in events, and I understood how to run events. So, it's now morphed into things where, obviously I was involved in the Adelaide Motorsport Festival at conception, and, prior to that, Tiger Adelaide, and, getting that sort of working here properly, which is Tarmac Rally we had here back in 2011, 12, 13. And then, of course, facilitating the deal to try to bring Classic Adelaide back as part of the Adelaide Motorsport Festival, which, I did a deal with Tiger Australia that owned the rights to that at the time to make that happen. And then we later replaced that with the Adelaide Rally, which we have now, which is, I suppose, in terms of motorsport events, is my focus now.
So would you say, so just going back a bit on sort of how you got into the marketing side of it. So it really started with a very, I guess, an almost practical, you're selling these ECUs and people need to learn how to tune them. So you do this, and it's like you weren't planning to kind of have this marketing. It was more just a needs, sort of fulfilling the needs that you had at the business at the time, and then it just kind of morphed in from that, was it? Or?
Yeah. I mean, and I guess for me, it never really the first thought I have when I'm wanting to do one of these new projects is that it's fun and enjoyable or sort of cool. And then the business side of it, in terms of like, I'll obviously analyze the business side of it so that it makes sense, but it's not entirely about, trying to make a lot of money. It's really about creating something cool. I mean, my marketing company is called Something Out of Nothing, and it's really what I live by. Is I like to create something out of nothing, and something that other people can enjoy. Like, I really get a buzz out of doing something or creating something, and then other people embracing it and loving it. And I, Andrew, I know that you share that, because I can see that you and Luke, when you create even, like your burger meats and, or whatever, or even when you've just, you're making a book, or you do whatever you guys are doing, you got the same thing, and you do a great job of it, because you're really, really passionate about it. You're living it. And then, and I'm sure nothing makes you feel any better than when you deliver a product and then people are swooning all over it and going, oh my God, how good is this? How great is that? And they enjoy it. That's what you get out of it. It isn't just something, to make the money. And I know you definitely know that as well.
Well, I think too, and this is something I guess we can kind of go into that obviously in these things, like, we don't make a bunch of money out of this, and if you were to actually analyze the amount of effort you put in on an hourly rate versus the return, you'd never even get involved in anything to do with this whatsoever. You just need to kind of
I know, and it is taxing, and
same amount of hours stocking shelves at Woolies.
I know, and like I mean, I'll let everyone into a nice little secret here, I suppose. And back, I think it was 2017, might have been at Adelaide Motorsport Festival. In the middle of the event, there was this time when the event stopped, and in front of tens of thousands of people, there was an ambulance that had to go on track, and it had to use the track to get out, to take someone to hospital. And so
I don't remember that.
You remember it?
No, I must have missed that. Well, 17, were we out being silly shooting rally at that point? Was that one of the crossover periods?
I don't think so. But anyway, and that year, that was me in the ambulance, because while I'm the event director, because like we were just saying, you put everything into it, and when you're running a really big event like that, or you're putting your heart and soul into everything, and you're literally working 24 hours a day. So when that happened, I think not slept for 2 days prior, and
I think I remember you at like drivers briefing that year, just full half dead.
And when I started to sort of calm down when we were at the event, I was sort of like, I was literally exhausted, and people wanted to check me out, and I thought I was fine, but then like, no, we're gonna go take you away. I suppose that is evidence that you do whatever it takes to try to get the result that you want, and it's all about effort and heart and soul and whatever.
Yeah, and plus you don't have like $50 million to sit there and employ 300 people to do that work for you. You're running around doing it all, trying to make it happen.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly, I won't say I'm doing it all, because there's definitely, there's an incredible team of people that help with things, but we got to run lean, and we got to try to be efficient and whatnot. So
because I'd certainly agree, like from obviously the burger meat stuff we've done is nothing on the scale of what you've done, but I really never those last couple of car meets, when we were getting sort of 500-600 cars and it's turning into an actual event and we're just a couple of guys who like cars, and it's like, shit, suddenly, there's all of these things you've got to think about, like, public toilets and, all of this sort of real boring stuff. And I didn't really enjoy them until after it. Like at the time it was pretty just stressful and unenjoyable. But then the next day when you wake up and you look at the photos and you look and you're like, that's when you actually enjoy it, once it's done and it's over. And I sort of found that, but yeah, that's interesting. So, I mean, going into that. So, obviously we'll get to the rally stuff in a bit, but what else are you involved in at the moment? Automotive? Is it just the rally? Is that the core of your business? Or are you...
Well, I've got, we do a lot of consulting to automotive companies and through the marketing business. And then there's the events business that's got the rally and that's got a little, that's mainly it. There's some other little events that we're looking at doing. There's, I know someone posted, they want to know about what's going on with this Strath Hill climb thing, which is, that's a pretty cool thing if it ends up happening later this year. But there's essentially a private property and a gentleman that's got his own hill climb track that he's built on a property, and we've sought approval from all the necessary authorities and whatnot to run an event there, a single event. So we just, I suppose.
How long has that been built for?
It's still being built now. That's part of the problem, is that we still, got some things like barriers and things that still need to go in.
Because I lived at Strath for almost 8 years. And I would have died knowing there was a hill climb track there and not knowing about it.
No, it's sort of hidden away. And but when that's done, that will come out, and that'll be that's just going to be a small event. Well, I say it's going to be a small event, but everyone of course wants to do it because it's new. That'll be really interesting. And the Gorge Rally Sprint, which is a concept that I came up with a while ago, and we ran that last year. And so this year it's the MSS Safety Gorge Rally Sprint that, look, I really handed the rights to that to Ivor Stanellis, who's an amazing friend and work colleague, who's the clerk of course for the Adelaide Rally. He's been running rallies since the 70s. He's a Hall of Famer, CAMS Hall of Famer and whatnot. And he's so he's going to be a great partner in effect in doing some of this stuff, because he shares the passion and really cares about, he's invested in the state and the events that we run in the state here. And so he's operating that, and that gives me an opportunity to do the event, because of course I love racing cars, and have reconnected with Tarmac Rally just recently, because of course I was doing a lot of Tarmac Rally in the classic Adelaide days up till about 2008, and then I went and did Tiger Adelaide, and did that for a few years in my GDR, my R32 GDR,
which is a pretty cool car.
Yeah, it was. Again, like everything, I shouldn't have sold it.
Yeah, because I remember that being up on Y105 and looking at it and going, oh, that seems relatively cheap for a pretty well built, like class leading, like rally winning Tarmac rally car.
You're just making me feel worse about it. Making me feel a lot worse about it. But I sold that, and too cheaply. And prior to that, I had a Mazda RX-4 coupe, black, mint car. That I, again, you look back, I probably shouldn't have sold that, and ran a Nissan Silvia for a little while as well. But I got in, I went back to do some circuit racing, because I could, I was circuit racing back in the early 2000s, doing improved production in a Mazda 808.
Wow.
A rotary pad Mazda 808, like an RX-3 coupe.
And
then I went to the Tarmac Rally, and when I started Tarmac Rally, I just got addicted to it. I mean, it's like nothing else. And not so long ago, I went back and did some circuit racing in the Porsche Cup car, which is an amazing car, and did that for a while, and was pretty so satisfied that I did that, and then got back into that again, and felt like I sort of was still in touch with that sort of type of motorsport. But sold it and went and gone back to Tarmac Rally, and
because those Cup cars are like, in terms of performance and what you can extract out of them, like bang for buck. They're well up there.
For circuit racing, yeah, definitely. But in the category I was racing in, it's still a little bit checkbook racing type thing. So, I'm racing against, cardiac surgeons and things like that have got a lot more money than they've got, some amazing cars and, they're great drivers too. They're great drivers and, I might just be okay, I suppose. But, I just couldn't mix it. So, I think I was coming third in the championship and then got hit and took the car out on the last round and I got no points. And then I think I finished fourth, but in the championship, but I enjoyed it, but it's the tarmac rally thing that I really love. And so I got an ex circuit car, and an Evo 8 RS and and then
I live stream they can
that's the car.
Right.
I mean, I saw that because that was the first run last year, wasn't it, for the car that you ran it?
Yeah, it was. I did the Gorge Rally Sprint in it, and we finished third in that with the first event back, and then I ran it in the Adelaide Rally. But I'm trying to obviously sort of run part of the event as well. So I did day one, and I think we had a second fastest on stage on one stage, and I was pretty happy with how we went. And then did a couple of stages on day three. I'm looking forward to doing more of that. And I have been taking part with my daughter as my navigator, so which I really enjoyed because she. I remember taking her to. I remember taking her to school, and she would read the notes when we would ride down Mount Lofty stage. And she's quite good at that, and we sort of reconnected over the. Spend a lot of time in the car together when you're doing recce and stuff like that, which is really good. So we're hoping to do some more in that.
I think one of the first things I noticed about your car was the quick release, the dry brake fuel. It's got to be the only tarmac car with that on there, right?
Yeah, well, it was because it was a GTP car.
It was a GTP car.
Yeah, so it's done Clipsal 500 and it's done Bathurst and all of that kind of stuff. And we basically just put tarmac shocks in it and BRM set it up, and and the car's great.
So Tim, how's it been? Because I know I've it's back in the Adelaide Motorsport Festival days, seeing you trying your hardest to steal a lap or two when you can. I mean, how is it the most frustrating thing in the world that you see a gap and you're like, I really want to do this event, I'm going to make it happen, and then you make it happen, but you're so busy making it happen that you can't actually do the event? Is that something?
Yeah, it was a bit like that. So I'm again at the Motorsport Festival, I had the Porsche Cup car there, and I think I did the practice session, and that was it. And I thought, I'll do the practice session and then I'll do one or two other sessions through the weekend, but I didn't get around to doing it. And it reminds me a bit of like when my mother said to me, "Oh, you should be a mechanic," and I'm like, "No, I don't want to work on anyone else's cars." It's because back then I used to really enjoy working on the car and doing what I did myself. But when it turns into a job, then I'm not telling you anything you don't know, I'm sure, but then it starts to taint it. So that's sort of what has happened a little bit, and I actually get a lot of enjoyment out of taking my other car or my motorbike to like a cars and coffee event, where it's sort of it's really dumbed down in terms of I shouldn't say dumbed down, but it's really it's just super grassroots, really basic, really social.
You just rock up.
Yeah, you just rock up and you just chat about cars and stuff with other people. Everyone shares the passion, and it's I actually get a lot of enjoyment out of that.
Especially after the high pressure, because those rallies, doing a major rally, it is a very stressful thing. I mean, you've got a lot of places to be on a lot of time. You've got a lot of ducks to get in a row before you even turn up to the first stage. Like it's not usually just a sort of a chill, relax. And I guess what I want to get into with that is that one thing I think you've been very good at, and we'll talk about Adelaide Rally in a little bit and what's coming up, but I think lowering the barrier of entry to rallying is one of the things that the Adelaide Rally has been amazing for. And I can count several 5, 6 of our friends who have all started competing that wouldn't have had the chance, because back in the old Classic Adelaide days, you coming from zero, you needed a full rally car, a license, a helmet, a suit, all of this sort of stuff, and it was just unattainable really to do it. Whereas now you can get involved in the tours and the sort of the spirit and gradually work your way up. I mean, I guess sort of drawing the analogy like of sort of bringing the fun into rally, and I think that's something that's been
I suppose my philosophy with the rally, and this is going to be a good opportunity for me to explain a lot of things now about why we do things in the rally, because often, the one of the most frustrating things being an event organizer is, there's about 10,000 people that give you advice on how to run the event and what you should be doing.
Well, I was actually going to leave that till the end. But,
but I can assure you that it's certainly not because we certainly don't know everything. I'm not pretending we know everything at all, but I can assure you though that there is a reason why everything happens, and or why things are the way they are. And with the Adelaide Rally, I suppose I could see that there's a gravitation towards the speed limited categories and the touring categories, and whether some people like it or not, it's an unfortunate fact that with the way we live at the moment, and what I mean by that is we live in an environment or a time when people are really, they're risk averse, and there's, they're hesitant to take risks on things. And we're living in an environment where, insurance is really expensive, and where, we've got the not in my backyard, the NIMBY attitude, which is, obviously, people might be all for an event, but only if it doesn't happen in their backyard. So what I'm trying to say is there's complexity surrounding regulatory authorities, there's complexity surrounding traffic management, there's complexity surrounding even people's attitudes that are entering the event and stuff, such that the area that's our greatest growth area is these touring sort of lifestyle pieces, and they become a really important part of the event because, well, to be honest with you, like financially, like they underpin the event a great deal because Adelaide Rally is 2/3 touring. It's really successful in that because of these assets that we have here in Adelaide. Like, what I mean by that is the proximity of the Adelaide CBD to where the rally is held. Is you can leave the Parc Fermé where the rally stays overnight, and you could be at your first stage in quite literally like 15 minutes, and then you'll be driving through vineyards 10 minutes after that and whatnot. So we live in a beautiful place that also lends itself to these sort of tourism activities or these more lifestyle type elements of the event, and they're the areas that have got the greatest scope for growth because they've got the greatest pool of audience or market. Yeah. So it goes without saying that there's tens of thousands of people or more that in Australia that have got interesting cars that want to drive them in a spirited manner on a great road somewhere. But the number of people that have got fully caged cars and have got national rally licenses and aspire to drive along roads, absolutely flat out, and that's sort of what they want to do. That's for one reason or another, it's diminishing a bit. So
I think that's a level of commitment to do that, because if you look at it, you either need, you need to either be, if you look at the car preparation side of things, you need to be wealthy enough to pay someone professionally to do that, or you need to donate or designate significant portions of your free time to do it yourself. And it's a huge commitment. Like, it's an absolutely huge commitment. And you also need to be prepared to walk away from the car if you crash it, because that's what happens, and you need to be okay with that risk. And it's like, you're right, the number of people that either have the time or the capital to prepare the car and be willing to kind of walk away from it if they have to is it's not big. But
correct.
If you've got a 911 in the garage and you want to go and drive it sort of.
Yes. I actually think that the point about more the risk averse nature of people at the moment is interesting as well. Like, not wanting to take those risks.
Yeah, but that leads me to this sort of funnel that we created, or this tiered sort of structure that you're seeing now of like, we create the Prima Tour, that's the entry level thing that people come and do the touring element for one day, and if they want to do that more than one day, then there's the main tour, and if they want to do that but they want to go a little bit faster, then obviously the safety's got to match the activity. So there's some other requirements in terms of safety for the Spirit Tour category. And then we've got Challenge, which is again like, oh yeah, I'm loving this, and but I really want that competitive nature, and I want a trophy at the end of it potentially. So we created the Challenge category, and then you've got outright competition. And what we're seeing is that people might not want to do the full-on thing, and they might not want to do just the tour, but like you're mentioning that some of your friends have come into it, there's a lot of people fitting into the Challenge category. And so the tide might turn. So we might see, well, we've already seen it, that people that have done Challenge category, that like might be your friends, that have had less barriers to entry, and they get into the event and they experience rally and they start to understand it, and then they get that, they get addicted to it, I suppose, and they just can't get enough of it. Well, then they may move on to the competition category. So I'm thinking that although there might not be massive fields of competition cars, and that's consistent with other events in the country. If you look at Targa Tasmania and other things like that, the main competition category numbers have diminished from, let's say, the heyday of the early 2000s. But we may see that come back, because the Challenge category fields are getting bigger and bigger, and I think that that we could see those. Well, we already are seeing some of them spill over to competition. And having said all of that, I've been really surprised at our entries for this year, and particularly given the coronavirus thing and all the other kind of stuff. We're at, I think, 46 entries after about 12 days of entries open, and any other year that we've opened entries and we've been 14 days in, we've probably been at 14 entries. So we're maybe 3 times what we normally are at. So,
well, I mean, like, it's certainly been, Andrew and I have noticed, because some of our photos have been in it, but like just this car's entered, this car's entered, this car's entered.
Yeah, just like popping up left, right.
Constantly throughout the day on Instagram and Facebook.
I
was very pleased to see that, because I knew that, that's a good sign for the event coming.
Yeah, it's been really good, really, really, really good. So, I mean, who knows what will happen? And we've got a lot more interstate cars coming this year. There's a contingent of about 10 cars from WA, just with one group that we're expecting to enter shortly, that are organising themselves. And so it's a competition group as well. It's comp cars. We've had competition cars enter from New South Wales and Victoria that we haven't seen for 20 years that are coming back. The other thing that's been really interesting is we've had calls and emails from people that have been working on a car for, in some cases, quite literally like 15 years. They've been building a car, and they've not, and it's like they finished it this year. So I don't know what's happened, whether because of coronavirus and they've been in isolation or whatever, they've been onto it. But they've
isolation
finished the
garage.
car. Absolutely, and they finished the car, and it's it's their lifelong dream to come and do Adelaide Rally. So they've entered the event. So we're seeing quite a bit of that as well.
Well, I mean, one of my things, and Andrew would probably share the same thing, of when we were younger and Classic Adelaide was in its heyday, was that dream of like, I want to enter Tarmac Rally, I want to do Classic Adelaide. So, I mean, I'm sure.
And look,
when we get the time and or funds to sort out a Tarmac Rally car, we'll be there doing it too. And that could be 15 years.
It's similar, because we've done the photography for the last few years, and every time I've been doing the photography, I've been standing on the side of the road going, I wish I was out there in my Fiat. But it's the same. We had Michael Busby on the podcast the other week, and he said the same thing. Definitely, that really what kicked it off for him was in Classic Adelaide in the heydays of the 90s, the late 90s, just standing on the side of the road going like, I have to do this. Like I have to do that. And now you kind of can, which is really cool. So,
well, and also in that kind of stepped system too, which is really cool. And I'm sure like a lot of the people that we know that are our mates that have done, stepped up through the categories, that as their careers progress and they get more funds, I'm sure they'll be in comp.
Yeah,
exactly. So Tim, what's the event going to look like this year? What are we up for?
Well, it's easy to explain if you're familiar with it from previous years. because I can just explain the changes, I suppose. But for the uninitiated, it's 34 stages over 4 days, or a little more than 3.5 days, really, because the competition starts on the Wednesday and they start at 11 o'clock. They do 9 stages. They're quite short on the Friday
Wednesday.
Sorry, the Wednesday. And
it's getting late.
Yeah, on the Wednesday. And then Thursday is when the tour comes in and the Prima Tour comes in. So that's the biggest day. That's sort of around 326 cars involved in the event on that day.
Which is horrible for us taking photos.
Yeah.
It's a big day.
While I'm on that, it's like, so when you're dealing with 326 cars, so that's, like 650 odd people on that day that we've got to serve lunch to and all that kind of stuff. But it takes nearly 3 hours for the field to get through any one spot. So that's the other challenge, is that we're dealing with 10 different council regions and we're trying to push this huge field of cars that takes 3 hours to get through all around the Adelaide Hills, McLaren Vale, sometimes out near the Barossa and whatever. So it's actually quite a big challenge. It's not an easy thing to organise. Anyway, so Thursday is the biggest day. Friday has got the longest stages in. We've got 2 18K stages in this year. You do Marble Hill, which we did last year. Again, for those that don't know, it's difficult to explain, but you go from Cuddly Creek down the Gorge Road, up Corkscrew, and then turn left on Montacute Road and end up near Ashton. So there's about 120 corners in over 19 Ks. The top cars that take part in the event average only about 97 Ks an hour. So that's the winning car would only average nearly 100 Ks an hour on that stage. So it just gives you an indication about how tight and technical it is. And we'll run that backwards with a slight variation as well. So there's a couple of long stages on the Friday. We've got a few more sort of 10K stages and, everyone's favourites like, Norton Summit and Chain of Ponds. We've extended that. It's called Chain of Ponds Plus this year. It goes towards Gumaraka. We've got a new stage that's, new for many people, but it's called Snake Gully that we're bringing in on the Thursday. It used to be called Upper Hermitage in the old Classic Adelaide event.
Yeah.
We do some other bizarre things, like we run Wickham's Hill down and up and Wollonga Hill down. Wow. We brought my Ponga back.
Wollonga Hill down?
Yeah, Wollonga Hill down. So you definitely need to have some guts, some balls to do that. But it has been run downhill before back in the day. We've extended what's called Doctors Creek to be a little bit longer. It's almost all the way from Strathalbyn to Macclesfield.
That'll be good.
We bring Kanmantoo back.
Because that has been difficulty around that region as of late, trying to get stages in the council. Not for the last 3 or 4 years. It's pretty good. Yeah. So, but it is that last section as you come, like into Mackie is good, like good section of road to be on. So it's always a shame that it doesn't go that far.
Yeah. So I suppose that also leads me to something else, that because not everyone, but a number of people always say, run longer stages. We want longer stages, which I do. I want to, right? But the reality is that we operate this event in close proximity to a capital city, and other regions like Mount Barker, which is one of the fastest growing cities in the country, that's got tens of thousands of people living there. And we're running this event sandwiched in between those places. The traffic on the arterial roads is not like what it was in the 90s, and it is astronomically greater. And of course, we consult with Department of Planning, Transport and Infrastructure and SA Police when we go to do these events, and they have all the data on, traffic volumes and things like that. And so we can't, it might be easy for someone to look at a map and go, wow, let's run a stage from Gawler to Noarlunga via the Adelaide Hills, that's 60 Ks long and is twisty and all that kind of stuff. But in reality, we can't cut off communities, and we've got to make sure there's alternative detours. So, part of the prerequisite for getting the road closure approvals is that we are considerate of community access and things like that. We're also constantly trying to reduce the number of directly affected residents. So we've got to shape the event around all those sorts of things. So I can absolutely assure you that there is a huge number of factors that need to be dealt with, and there's regulatory compliance and whatnot when we go to actually run these stages. So it's not
the very nature of what you're trying to do with this event. Like, if obviously we're really into it because we've grown up with it. But when you think about it, we're closing off people's public roads to go and race on them. Like, that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, and race on them literally flat out as well.
And I mean, when does the process start for that? So you finish
it's just that's the thing. It's just over 1 year out from the event. So this is not. We're already working on. I'm actually even working on next year now. On with some things, because we're we've got a few new things for 2021, and 2021 is 25 years since the first Classic Adelaide as well. So there's some really interesting stuff we're working on that needs to be planned now for that. But wait and see. You've got to start well in advance, and a lot of these councils have got festivals and events policies where we have to go to consultation earlier than 6 months out from the event, or further than 6 months out from the event, I should say. So and then we need to deal with any issues we've got. So because all of the councils are independent, let's say one council rejected something, we can't take it for granted that there would be a massive change to the route, basically, if just a couple of roads got rejected, because of course when you're moving 300 and something cars through areas and you've got the 3-hour piece going on. If I just drop one stage, or wasn't to run one stage, we're literally running to the second, like rally time. So I would need to go and hold cars at a regroup or something, or find some other solution for that, or find another road. But if I've already got my approval for roads elsewhere, and the road closure approval might be from, let's say, 2:00 to 6:00 or something like that, I need to make sure I can get to where the other stage is. We're going to action that, and then I can get back over to where the ones are that I've already pre-approved. So it is a nightmare. The other thing that is a problem for us is now that the events that's, I suppose, successful and got that bigger field, that when you've got regroups and lunch stops and we're trying to even loop stages, like for example on the Friday this year, cars will do they'll do the Stafford Ridge stage, then they will do Marble Hill, they'll go do Norton Summit too, so the second running of Norton Summit, and then they'll go to lunch at Foxfield Oval, and then they will go to run what is Marble Hill backwards. But they're going to have to be stuck at lunch for approximately, it could be 60 minutes to an hour and a half. At the moment, we've got 1.5 hours in there, and it's not ideal. But the reason that we're doing that is the field is so big, cars are still running on, they're just finishing Stafford Ridge, and as soon as the last car comes through, we try to turn around the Marble Hill stage, turn it into what's called Morialta this year, try to get it ready for cars to run on. And as you can imagine, there's a really exhaustive procedure for making a stage ready to run. So it's not just about, she'll be right, mate, run the cars up the road. So
send the zero car down, we'll see what happens.
So it's if we only had a couple of cars in the event, you could loop things around and do whatever. But when you've got 3 hours of stuff going on, it is actually a real challenge. So do
you still have, like, as a part of that whole council approval thing, do you still have to seek approval from residents on the route as well?
That is a really important thing, that we have to go to consultation in most areas, and the consultation is about 6-8 months in advance, and then we have to put together a report for that particular council. Remember, there's like 10 of them, explaining what the feedback was and common themes and what we're doing to remedy any issues, if they're solvable, and then it gets assessed, and then there can be a recommendation to council, and then we go to a final notification again. So we deal directly with 1,003 residents this year. It used to be nearly 3,000, and now we're down to 1,003. And
is that just because of the stages you've picked?
Yeah, so you'll notice that, when you're doing Chainer Ponds and, Scott Bottom and Bradbury and stuff like that, there's clearly that there's very few residents, no residents in those areas, and that's part of the reason why they're chosen. Again, it's just one of the dozens of factors that you've got to consider when you're trying to map the route out. And you've got more highly populated areas like the Stirling, Sturt Valley. Well, Stirling's called Sturt Valley this year. It's got Sturt Valley Road brought into it. They're highly populated. Mount Lofty's highly populated. Part of Marble Hill is, there's some other, what's called Mount George this year, which is the old Piccadilly stage, is brought back again this year.
Cool.
They're highly populated, and with that comes some complexity. But overall, there's actually generally more support. We've always had majority support compared to negativity surrounding the event from residents, from directly affected residents. I should say there's often a few people, and I mean I feel like a handful, that are more often than not they're actually not even on the route, and they don't particularly like the event, and they put up a lot of resistance, or I shouldn't say resistance, because they're not being affected, but they are they're being quite noisy about particular things.
And I just want to jump in quickly with, if anyone's listening this, because this is something I'm very passionate about, that when people are out on the stages, be you a competitor or a photographer or a spectator or whatever, when you do encounter these people that clearly hate the rally, don't engage with them or get angry with them, because it just makes it worse. Be as friendly as possible, be as reasonable as possible, explain it, because as you said, it's just something I've observed a lot of, people getting kind of worked up.
Yeah, and even things like when you're spectating, jumping into people's into people's properties and stuff, and just being respectful of it, because it does affect the whole event. It's not just I want to get here and watch it. It
quite literally does.
Yeah.
It quite literally does. You would be surprised at even just some of the smallest things that make a big deal. Honestly, even if spectators, if they leave some rubbish on the verge next to someone's house, and then it gets reported to the council, the elected members they will bring it up at a meeting, and they will want to know what's being done about it, or it's just one more battle that I've got to fight, is even just something as simple as that.
And also, I'd sort of think of it this way. It's I think from us, we sort of think, why would you be objected to this rally? It's amazing. It brings all this money in. It's all these people loving it. But it's flip it on the other side. And let's just say, I'm just trying to think of an activity that you have completely no interest in. I know there's a lot of people that like cars and horses, but let's just say, for example, they wanted to close the road off to your house to parade horses down for 6 hours, and you couldn't leave, and you had to miss a Cars and Coffee because you couldn't get out if you drive. And you've got zero interest in horse riding, you'd be bloody fuming about it, So I can kind of see.
Yeah, exactly. And look, actually, one of the common themes from the negative feedback that we get is there's a common theme with the people that don't particularly like our event, do not like the Tour Down Under. They don't like cycling either. That's a big issue. How
did you do? That's interesting that correlation has happened. Is that by design that you've asked that question, or is that just come out? No,
that just comes out.
Also, I hope you don't run this, and I hate this as well. Is that
they often say, one of the first things they say is, we're sick of our road being closed, and the Tour Down Under, blah 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 blah, Tour Down Under. So there's all this annoyance about that, and then it's and you're much the same, basically, type of thing. But the event, the thing that we got to remember, and I'm lucky that we've got, in certain council regions, we've got elected members that really understand this, is that the event brings about 1,400 bed nights to South Australia. So you got to remember that when we've got interstate crews coming over, and it was about 15% of the field was from interstate last year, I definitely think it's going to be up. It could be well into the 20%, could be close to 30% of the field from interstate this year. Those people come over, they often bring other people with them. They are staying around about 5 nights, a good deal. If they're doing competition, they're doing challenge, then they would have come over and done recce, you know. So they've gone over, they've come over prior to the event, they've written notes, you know, they'll check their notes and stuff, and they're spending time in the regions, and they're buying a pie from the shop here, and they're, you know, buying a bottle of wine here and all that kind of stuff. And 100% of the people that do the event that have come from interstate engage in tourism activities, 100%. Now, we know all of this because we survey these people and whatnot. And the average spend of the people that do the Adelaide Rally, and much the same as when we were running the Adelaide Motorsport Festival, is extraordinarily high. So back when we were doing the Adelaide Motorsport Festival, I think the average spend per day was only sort of second to medical conference people coming in, you know, because of course the people that are coming in for the event are almost deciding whether they're, you know, they're going to come over in their Maserati or their Porsche or whatever it is. So they're usually relatively well off. And when they're here for a good time. So they're not staying in a backpackers. Clearly, they're staying in a reasonable hotel. And when they go out, they want to buy some South Australian wine. I mean, I think South Australia generates or produces, I think it's 80% of Australia's, I don't know if it's Australia's wine or Australia's premium wine anyway, but you know, so we're a big wine producer, and if you're here, you want to spend money, you want to buy some good stuff, and you know, that's what we see happening. And then there's a secondary benefit that is, you know, like this year we have a partnership with the Bridgewater Mill and Taylor and Holmes Catering, which are, you know, based at Bridgewater, and you know, they'll serve over 2,000 meals to the participants. So that's again direct economic benefit to that business. We just formed a partnership with Mount Lofty House, so we would like to hope that our guests from interstate are going to pick up some offers there and stay at Mount Lofty House, which is just incredible. And then New Sequoia Villas there are just, you know, a 6-star and just amazing. So you know,
seen
so
Max posting a bit about that.
Yeah. So there's tourism. There's tourism, a tourism piece. So there's direct economic benefit to the state, and there's all the tourism exposure and stuff like that. And you know, nothing makes me feel better than when, like last year, Zagami's had you know, a great little group, and a whole bunch of guys from Victoria came over, and you know, some of the commentary that came back from them when they were saying, oh, you know, we've come into Adelaide for business meetings before, and we've gone from the airport and we've gone to the city, and we've you know, we've had our meetings and whatever, but we just didn't know that, like, literally less than 20 minutes up the road, there's just all of this stuff, and it's so accessible with all these wineries, and it's just beautiful. And you know, they say, oh, we want to come back, and we're going to bring the family, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And you know, because we're so blessed here, we're so lucky, and you know, that's part of the reason why the Motorsport Festival was so, you know, successful as well, is that you can't run, you know, look at where that was held, is on an authentic, you know, track that's got F1 history. There's literally in the middle of a city, but is in beautiful parklands, you know, so it's like 200 meters from the CBD, and you know, and yet up the road we've got, you know, the Adelaide Hills and whatnot, and everything's it's easy to get around and stuff. And so it's the history, it's the authenticity, it's, you know, the linkage to motorsport that we've got here in South Australia, but you know, and the proximity and all that kind of stuff. There's just that formula that makes it so successful. So so the event is got genuine economic benefit, and sometimes it's difficult to try to educate you know, the person about that doesn't want their driveway blocked off for a few hours, or might have to leave earlier to go and do the shopping or something like that. But certainly there's others that do recognise all of that, and you know,
there's probably some business owners along the routes that are directly affected by it, you know, and get benefit from the event. So.
And we're working hard to try to do more stuff, you know, with some of those people. As the events got bigger, it's a bit of a challenge in itself to try to, you know, where we can park all those cars and deal with them. But this year we've also got a Lobethal element to the event. So we've got a stage called Lobethal this year, and we're going to bring cars into Lobethal Township and into the Oval there, and you know, the Lobethal Beer House, which normally wouldn't be open on that day, the Thursday, is opening, and they've got a lot of memorabilia from the old Lobethal Carnival, which of course celebrates the formerly with the Grand Prix that was held in Lobethal, and so there's that linkage, and you know, so you know, we're trying to do things to help other businesses like that, and you know, that's just one story. I mean, there's a whole heap of others with different wineries and you know, different producers and stuff that we're trying to work with to, you know, I suppose leverage the event to benefit regions and the state.
So I guess
we'll be happy about that.
Yeah, I was going to say it'd be good to go back to that area after the fires. And they've been through a challenging time, but so we kind of got a little bit sidetracked. But where does the event finish up? So I think we got to sort of with Guja Street. Is Guja Street back?
Well, pending COVID restrictions, Guja Street party would go ahead. That entirely depends on what the health authorities deem to be acceptable at the time. The East End piece we're going to tone down this year, so we won't have the final stage on Rundle Road that you saw last year with all of the water barriers and fencing and everything else that we had for that little stage on Rundle Road. That we won't be doing that. The cars will just come in. The last stage they'll do is called Athelston, which is Gorge Road down from Corkscrew down to the bottom. Wow. And then they will come straight into Rundle Road and then go under the arch in East Terrace, and they'll park in the East End. Well, I should say that's again, even that may change. So all this street party type stuff is still TBC, but that's what we envisage will happen.
I think it's super lucky. Australia's in such a good place. I mean, over here in the UK, Motorsport UK have said that when Motorsport sort of goes back at the end of the month, no co-drivers in cars. So basically they've struck rallying off the calendar entirely and for an undetermined period of time, which is devastating, really. For
Yeah. And look, we've got plans in place for like if some restrictions were brought back in and in regarding virtual briefings, and we've got a different scrutineering system for tour cars and another different one that's a scheduled scrutineering system for competition cars. So there's certainly plans in readiness depending on what level of restrictions we have in place, and at the same time we're prepared to fully refund interstate entries that can't make it because borders are closed.
Well, hopefully Victoria sort themselves out and stop and not have another big spread again, which would be good. Because we get quite a lot of people from Victoria over across for that event as well. So, it would be good if when borders open up that we can kind of keep them open. I'm pretty keen to get across to Melbourne as well. We've got a few things to happen over there, a few stories to write. I've got a little niece to go and see, so I'm pretty keen to start traveling again.
That's it. So,
that sounds like it'd be pretty cool. Like, sounds like some good stages coming in this year and some cool stuff happening.
Yeah. We try to mix it up every year because people want that familiarity, so they know what to expect, but at the same time they want some variation. So it's important that we do mix it up a little bit every year, but they still got some of the old favourites in there, and so that's obviously the sort of methodology that we've applied year on year to the event, and we'll continue doing so so there's always sort of something special there.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
And we've got the Prima Tour finishes at Bridgewater Mill this year, and we're just sort of working through that at the moment. But we imagine that what the offering is, that there's a gin and whiskey element that's going to be moving into the Bridgewater Mill, it looks like. So, that will finish with a bit more of a high-end food offering, and then I suppose a masterclass in some of these other wines and spirits and things there. So that's a bit different from the Applewood Distillery that we've been involved with for the last couple of years. And, we still have got a good connection with Applewood, and, would still like to work with them in future. But again, we're sort of changing things up, and we've got a different lunch stop on the Saturday that is at Bridgewater Oval and also brings in the Bridgewater Mill. So, we had Birdwood last year, we had Stirling the year before, and, again, we're sort of trying to mix it up and, in effect, share the love with different regions in the Adelaide Hills and deliver different sort of benefits and obviously economic benefit to different regions as well, and just provide a different flavour every year.
Yeah, and I guess for competitors as well, it's something to look, different spin on it every year, but still keep them coming, which is cool.
Yeah,
not doing the same thing every year.
Yeah, that's it. We've got a different sort of grab and go food offering this year as well, because we had a couple of issues with catering in the event last year. It was something that probably the number one complaint was just some of the queues and the
People always
waiting
complain about food.
Yeah, yeah. So
we know all about food complaints at events.
yeah.
It's a bane of burger meat was trying to serve the burgers out to people and not have a queue and
Correct.
and make sure it's hot and make sure the person who's delivered the food is delivering what they're saying they're going to deliver. And
it's those things about organizing events and motorsport events that you don't think about, that organizing like a hell of a lot of food to be delivered in a very short space of time to a lot of people is actually a really bloody hard thing to do.
Yeah, correct.
And there's just challenges like that, I think.
Yeah.
I think
we've got a good partner this year, so and that will get sorted.
Yeah,
and we've got some interesting cars, that look like they're coming to the event as well. We've got some. You'll see that WRC Celica of Stuart Bowes come back, and we're hoping to have another. I won't announce it here, but I'll wait till it's 100% confirmed. But there's another amazing Group B car that has just had an engine rebuild that we should see at the event. It's probably going to be sort of one of the star cars, I'm hoping that we'll see the Fiat 131 Group 4 car that had an engine failure the other year come back, and
that'll be cool.
There's a whole series of things like that, and we might even see Kevin Weeks come back in his 911, but not competing. But we just want to see that car come back and be on the road. So
that'd be awesome.
Been talking to Kevin Weeks about that, but just to see that.
Just time.
And I've even had a couple of conversations with Rex Broadbent, who obviously was a multi-time winner in the yellow 911, about what he might be doing. So I would think that it's quite possible that we'll see him in the event. I don't exactly know what he's going to be doing in the car, but we've had a number of conversations, so it'd be great to see that car back again too.
If there's one car you could get to the rally, what would it be?
Oh wow! I love Audi Quattros, and again, probably shouldn't have sold mine, a couple of years ago, but another regret.
Did you drive that much?
Yeah, I drove it at the Adelaide Motorsport Festival, and I had it on display in the Audi area.
Yeah, I remember.
And then a couple of Audi customers that were in the Audi VIP area asked whose car it was, and it got filtered back to me. And guy said that he wanted the car, and we did a deal. And he now owns the car.
Because that was quite a few years of building that thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a couple of years.
Yeah.
So I love the Audi Quattro. I mean, I suppose, Quattro, and even Stewie Reed's Quattro that we had at the event a few years ago.
Poor KVS again, bring that up again.
Carl getting bailed up in the 944.
I just can't beat the sound. So I suppose Quattro would be more Quattros.
Are you going to have a drive this year? Are you going to compete, or are you going to be?
I'm hoping to compete. Yeah, that's the plan. If I can get enough stuff sort of sorted out prior to the event, and of course, remember I've got a great ally in Ivor Stenellis, who and his team of people that mostly put together all of the operational, what we call the sporting side of the event is done. He's something that he takes care of. If all of that's sort of put to bed and everything else is, then I'm hoping that I can do the event and do it a bit more seriously, and possibly be doing it with my daughter as my navigator, and see how we go. I mean, obviously, I want to do, reasonably well, but I'm not doing this all the time, and there's a lot of better drivers out there than me, and there's a lot of better cars out there. But
I don't know, coming down Stafford, tripoding around the right-hander there on the corner, that was pretty cool.
Oh, cool.
That looked quick.
Oh yeah, okay, cool.
Definitely
cool.
quick.
Yeah.
Well, boys, what do you reckon? Have we pretty much covered anything else we want to cover while we're here, or I'm mindful of Tim's time in being very generous.
Getting pretty late here. Yeah, no, I think I think we're pretty cool. I mean, I'm just excited for motorsport to be back and things to be happening again, and the event to be running. I mean, that's pretty cool. We always have pretty big involvement in it. So
jealous of you all because I don't think I was planning to be back for it, and that was certainly intentional, and flights are booked and everything. But I'm not sure that the bizarre situation that it's going to be possible. Unfortunately,
yeah, Andrew, it's like. You should never have moved, mate. I mean, really.
I keep inviting Andrew to all the little events we're having in Adelaide just to annoy him, just to be like, maybe we shouldn't have left.
I was going to say my one cherry I had was I FaceTime Luke from Goodwood, from the form up grid revival and sort of rub it in his face, but I don't even have that to do anymore now. So
that I was always jealous of that, getting the FaceTime from Andrew with a personalized grid walk around the pits and everything. That was pretty cool. Well, maybe I'll do the same back to you this year.
Yeah, do.
100%. Well, cool. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, thank you. Good. Thanks so much for the chat. It's always good to talk about the rally and talk about car stuff and talk about old times and
RPM Motorsport. Maybe, or if you could sell those stickers again. Surely people would buy those stickers if you made them now.
I don't know. I've been toying with the idea of having an RPM reunion somewhere along the line where we just sort of get some, because those old cars exist. I still know that a lot of those people have got their cars from back in the day, and they got the stickers on them, and
Could you imagine, Andrew? How cool would that be?
Good times for a lot of people.
How do you anything? All these 40 and 50-year-old guys doing burnouts in an industrial estate. That would be rowdy.
Exactly. That's exactly it. That's it.
We could get Katsukitis to bring his old Fresh FM recordings from back in the 90s, and it'll be perfect.
Exactly.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah, that would be cool.
We got this mate who's proper stuck in that period of time, and he's still got CDs, or I think he's still got CDs in his car of recordings of Fresh FM from back in that day. That he listens to.
Anyway,
pretty cool. But that'd be a cool thing to see, RPM.
Reunion.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Maybe it can be a sports car safari thing. I don't know.
Maybe.
We would love to. We've got ideas. We've got plans for stuff. And speaking of, we're hoping to have issue 3 to show you the debut on the podcast tonight. Is actually running off the printers as we speak. We're a day or two behind, but we will have them this Sunday. Cars and Coffee Unley, which is going ahead in Adelaide. Luke will be there in the safari wagon. So come and get your
social distancing appropriately.
Yes, come and get your copy
on the table.
and then obviously available through the web store from then on, so you can order your copy through there and just pay for postage. And
pretty excited about this one. This will be a good one. And I've also been working pretty late this week, like mad, and having people coming and helping and making a whole bunch of new stickers, and got some jumpers and a couple of t-shirts. Yeah, which I'm wearing at the moment. It's really cool, handmade. Should be good. Pretty excited about that. Kind of looks pretty cool. Get back into the swing of doing some merch and some and having a magazine to bring out, which will be awesome. So pending, hopefully it's not going to be a torrential rain on Sunday. I think there's going to be a little bit of rain, but it's the first kind of event that is really going to car meaty type thing that's going to happen around anywhere, really. So hopefully it's not going to be overly crowded and crazy, and people will be respectful of other people's distance and stuff like that. And but it should be cool. I'm super excited to be seeing car people again, and just getting that just going out for Sunday, having a coffee, seeing some cars, and just having a good time. Seeing some people we probably haven't seen for a while too. So that'll be exciting. So cool.
All right, Tim. Thanks, mate. Been great.
Thanks, guys. Love what you're doing. Really appreciate it.
So what's the best way for people to get info if they need it?
Oh, they just go to adelaiderally.com.au and contact details.
And Tim's personal mobile is.
So if you've got any suggestions, give him a ring.
Adelaide Rally website, or even I'll follow the Instagram is pretty cool too, or jump on their Facebook and give them a follow. We're a bit biased because there's a bit of our media going up there too, which is cool. But I've genuinely enjoyed seeing like what's coming and the cars that are coming because it's getting me all excited and G'd up for
Yeah,
it. So,
and look, and obviously the shots are great, and you guys have been doing it for years, and you do a brilliant job of it, and it makes and I appreciate you sharing those images with me, so it makes our job a little bit easier to tell the story of what the event's about, and you guys do a great job with this, and clearly share the passion. So thanks so much for the opportunity, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. All right. Have a great night. We'll hang on, thank you. Who's that? Alex. Oh, that's nice.
Sure. Thank you, Tim, for the great effort. So thanks, Alex.
Yeah,
thanks, Alex. Well, that means a lot to me because honestly, I really appreciate it when people, can
actually
it's
enjoy
great.
the
It's
event,
great. I love the event. That's what it's all about. So thank you, Alex.
Yeah, awesome.